Hi, 8th grade. We're going to go ahead and start on page 6 today. We're still continuing the idea of central idea and finding supporting details. So let's go ahead and get started. Right here. Read this historical article, then which describes New York at the time John A. Rosenbling was designing the Brooklyn Bridge. Use the Study Buddy and Close Reading Guide, which is over here, to guide your reading. Okay, I like to go ahead and look at these first, just so I can keep them in my mind as I'm reading. So the lady says, the title tells me that this article will be about Old New York. As I read, I'm going to look for details about what life was like in the city in 1869. Close reading. Which sentence in the first paragraph captures the state of life in New York City in 1869? Circle the part in the sentence that describes the city. And then the second part says, reread the last paragraph that restate in your own words why people in New York and Brooklyn supported the idea of the bridge. Okay, so it's just nice to have those in your mind. Don't worry about them. We'll go back and reread them. But now let's go ahead and read our paragraph. I'm going to go ahead and read. I'd like you to follow along. As John A. Roebling was designing his bridge, life in New York and Brooklyn was teetering between old and new. No bridges existed between the two cities. Travelers used one of the 13 ferry boats that crossed the East River night and day. From the river, the spire of Trinity Church in New York was the tallest landmark to ships sailing in New York Harbor. People mostly traveled by horses and carriages and on sailing ships, but the use of railroads and steamships was growing. Communication was by mail or telegraph. Just a few years earlier, however, a telegraph cable had been laid across the Atlantic Ocean. In less than a decade, Alexander Graham Bell would invent the telephone. All over the world, new and amazing engineering feats were being accomplished. The Suez Canal in Egypt, the Mont-Cenis Tunnel, which is the longest railroad tunnel in France, and the Transcontinental Railroad across the United States. The idea of a bridge across the East River first gained support from civic leaders in Brooklyn. In 1869, Brooklyn and New York were independent cities. Brooklyn was the third largest and fastest growing city in the country, and a major manufacturing center. Brooklyn residents saw the bridge as a way to expand commercially, as it offered better access to New York's markets. New Yorkers, meanwhile, saw the bridge as a way to relieve overcrowding in the city. Thanks to how the Brooklyn Bridge created its first successful link between the two cities, an expanding metropolis emerged. By 1898, the modern city of New York consisted of 5 boroughs of Manhattan, the Bronx, Brooklyn, Queens, and Staten Island were created. All right, guys, let's go ahead and go back to the close reading. Which sentence in the first paragraph captures the state of life in New York City in 1869? So which part of this sentence explains how the life was in 1869? So let's go back. As John A. Roebling was designing his bridge, life in New York and Brooklyn was teetering between old and new. There we go. Doesn't that say right there what it was like? Life in Brooklyn was teetering between old and new. No bridges existed between the two cities. Travelers used one of the 13 ferry boats. Okay, so basically it was like some were stuck in the Stone Age and some were starting to go on with new technologies. I think that sentence right there that we circled is perfect. Let's go down to this close reader habit. Reread the last paragraph. Then restate in your own words why people in New York and Brooklyn supported the idea of the bridge. So why do you think people wanted the bridge? Well, let's find out. I'm going to highlight. The idea of a bridge across the East River first gained support from civic leaders in Brooklyn. In 1869, Brooklyn and New York were independent cities. Brooklyn was the third largest and fastest growing city in the country and a major manufacturing center. Brooklyn residents saw the bridge as a way to expand commercially. Okay, so Brooklyn residents wanted the bridge so they could expand commercially because it offered better access to New York's markets. While New Yorkers, meanwhile, saw the bridge as a way to relieve overcrowding. There's too many people, so they're like, yes, build a bridge, get some of them out of here. Thanks in part to how the Brooklyn Bridge created the first successful link between the two cities, blah, blah, blah. So basically, in my own words, I would say the last paragraph explains that Brooklyn residents wanted to expand so that they could go over to New York and sell things, whereas New Yorkers wanted the bridge so that they could get rid of some of their population because they were so overcrowded. All right, let's go ahead and turn the page. We're going to go ahead and answer some questions. Which sentence best states the central idea of the first paragraph? Now remember, the first paragraph is explaining that in 1869, Brooklyn was teetering between old and new, and it's just kind of talking about all the different things that they did have at that time. So I would say the central idea is, let's go through the answers. Life in New York was teetering between old and new. I mean, it literally says that. People once traveled mostly by horse and carriage and ship. I don't believe that is the main idea, because they're saying how they did once do that, but now they're starting to move forward. New engineering feats were being accomplished in the 1800s. Yeah, but I think that's more like in the second paragraph, so not the first paragraph. People crossed the East River by ferry boat day and night. That's not, I mean, they did say that, but that's not the whole main idea. The main idea of that first paragraph is that Brooklyn and New York were both teetering between old and new. Like they were both kind of stuck in the older days, but they were starting to want to change that. So A is the best answer. Number 2. Which detail best supports the idea that Brooklyn Bridge helped create modern-day New York City? Let's see. Brooklyn Bridge helped create the new... Okay, so the bridge had the support of civic leaders? No. Because the bridge had support does not mean that the Brooklyn Bridge helped New York. Okay, that's just stating that they had supporters. The bridge helped ease overcrowding in New York? Yeah, it definitely did help with overcrowding. The Brooklyn Bridge helped create modern-day New York City because it did help with the overcrowding. Let's look at C. The Brooklyn Bridge successfully linked what had been two independent cities, Brooklyn and New York. Yeah, it definitely did that. And now I need to reread this. I think that this is a supporting detail. B is a supporting detail, but not to support the idea that Brooklyn helped create modern-day New York. I think C is best compared to B, but let's keep reading. John A. Roebling designed the Brooklyn Bridge to make travel easier between New York and Brooklyn. Okay, that's not a good detail to explain like how New York City became modern-day New York City. So here's the thing. B and C are both really, really close. I'm going to go with C, and I'm going to tell you why. Because the main idea here is that the Brooklyn Bridge helped create modern-day New York. A detail to support that, if I said the Brooklyn Bridge successfully linked what had been two independent cities, but now they are linked together. I believe that that's a better supporting detail than just saying that it helped overcrowding, because I think that it helped with the overcrowding for sure, but that's not what created the modern day New York. You know, Brooklyn had a lot. They helped with all of their manufacturing. So I'm not going to say B, I'm going to say C. All right. Describe how the author connects the final paragraph to the paragraphs that came before it. Explain how all 4 paragraphs in the article work together to develop the central idea. Use at least 2 details from the text in your response. Okay, so the final paragraph kind of summarizes the significance and impact that the Brooklyn Bridge had. The author explains how the bridge united the two cities, and then we can give it a supporting detail we can just give a quote that it shows that. And the final paragraph also concludes that the Brooklyn Bridge created the modern city of New York, okay? So tying the ideas of like New York was teetering between old and new, that paragraph 1 says. So I'm going to go ahead and just start writing that, what I just said. I'm going to start writing that down in my own words, kind of. Basically what we're doing is we're trying to describe how the last paragraph is connected by the first paragraph and the second paragraph, and we need to put some supporting details, okay? So I'm going to say the final paragraph, or the last, tells the significance or importance that the Brooklyn Bridge had. Period. So the author says that the bridge united two independent cities. Okay, so the author said that the bridge united two independent cities and I'm going to give a quote. I'm going to give a quote that said, "An expanding metropolis emerged." That's my other detail. Okay, the last paragraph also says that the Brooklyn Bridge created the modern city of New York. That'll be my other supporting detail. I'm going to make sure my microphone's on. Oops. So that last detail I just gave, that ties together the ideas that life was teetering between the old and New York. Teetering between old and new. Okay. All right, guys. That is it for today. We will do page 8 next week. All right, so your homework for today is to scan page 7, take a picture of page 7, and upload it to this slide, and then submit in Google Classroom. All right, bye guys.